It's crazy to think just days ahead of the pay-per-view, Wade Keller would write this. Jeff Jarrett's contract with the WWF expires this weekend. If he's not on the pay-per-view to wrestle China, expect him to show up on Nitro the next night. If he does wrestle at the pay-per-view, that doesn't necessarily mean he's staying in the WWE because the pay-per-view might be his final night in the company before jumping to WCW. There's no word as of the deadline which direction he's leaning. Jarrett left WCW 2 years ago and debuted on the October 20th Raw with a controversial interview. It does feel like he never really, like that opening interview 2 years prior in 1997, where he said something along the lines of, "You're ripping off the Bible to put money in your pocket. And when you and I hook up, it's going to be your judgment day."
Oh,
Something along those lines leads
Or
Austin to confronting Jarrett backstage immediately, saying something like, "You're messing with my merch money." Was JR, I mean, is JR's opinion
yeah.
that Jeff Jarrett's run from 97 to 99, he sort of accidentally put a glass ceiling on his upward mobility with that promo in
I
95?
think I think he did. He alienated a lot of people, and he wasn't hot. That's the thing about it. His timing was not great as it worked out. Now I'm sure he got a nice financial deal from WCW, but he was never going to be the answer. Jeff is a we're here in the World Series time. Jeff was a middle infielder, hitting about seventh or eighth, so he's not going to make a huge difference in the perception and the pecking order. A hell of a hand. He's still a hell of a hand. He's one of the best in ring performers that AEW has. So it just was bad timing, bad decisions. I should not have let it get to that point, but I did, unfortunately. But he wanted to leave. What do you do, Conrad, when you got somebody that works for you that wants to leave? It's hard to make that decision. It's really daunting. They want to go. So how do we help them go? And we helped them go with an expensive mistake.
Did you Were you having trouble getting him to renew before? Did you know the writing was on the wall when Russo gives you notice? When did you realize, uh-oh, we might have a problem? Is it that day?
I don't know if it's that day or not. Some people have a higher opinion of just in ring work than I do. I think he's a hell of a hand, really a solid, fundamentally sound hand that can have the proverbial good match with about anybody.
Right.
But bad decisions were made there, I think. Uh, but Jeff didn't have any leverage except that money. That one transaction was all he had, and he left and made the most of it. So good for him.
Yeah, let's talk about that. It's written in the Observer. Jarrett's WWF contract expired on October 16th, the day before No Mercy, but he came back for one last show to put China over in the IC title match at No Mercy the previous night in Cleveland. Both Jarrett and even the WWF pretty well made Jim Ross, who handles contract negotiations for the WWF, into the scapegoat for Jarrett leaving.
Yeah.
Jarrett had signed a 2-year contract with the company at $350,000 per year, selling them on the idea that he was 30 years old with 12 years experience and primed and ready to jump from WCW and be a superstar. They initially pushed him as one, but it didn't work. They tried character after character with him, which never paid off, and in competitive segments when Raw was close, Jarrett was a ratings liability. Somewhere during this period, Jarrett was pressured, convinced, whatever, to take a pay cut to a $250,000 base, which he obviously resented. Although with the WWF booming, he was actually online to earn probably even more than his previous 350 base this year.
No doubt.
So let's
That's
talk about that. What
no
what,
doubt.
what spurs the renegotiation? Do you recall?
Well,
I know.
he wanted more money. It's like partially ego. He wanted to make more cash, and the opportunity to make more cash was there. And like you said, he was on target to exceed his 350. on a $250,000 guarantee. So, it's just one of those things, man. He, I think we all made mistakes in that deal. I'm glad at the end of the day, Conrad, that Jeff's not come out as uh, friends and respectful friends. That's important. And so he's doing a good job for AEW. In every little role that he's been selected to participate in has been a nice performance, no doubt. So anyway, I it was regretful, a lot of stress during that time. This coming off more stress. It was horrible.
We know that it's all water under the bridge now, but do you recall why you were asked to go ask Jeff to take a pay cut from 350 to 250? Seemingly the business has never been hotter. You're setting records everywhere you go, but he's asked to take a pay cut. Was anybody else asked to take a pay cut? Can you tell us anything
Oh,
about
I think so. I think there were others. I can't remember who they were, but to pare back a little bit and to downsize, just to prepare for the eventuality that things will not always be great. And so that's kind of what we had there. And that was Vince's call. Of course, I get to be the messenger,
right?
but I didn't create the scenario. I created the process on McMahon's orders, and Jeff was just caught there. He that's a good living, especially when you don't have any ceiling. You can make as much as you want. How often can you work? Are you healthy? Are you productive? He could do all those things. So it was inevitable to me that Jeff was going to far exceed his downside guarantee as long as we kept him booked. And I had every intention to keep Jeff booked. The issue was always, he wanted to work with Austin because that was the way to get over. And Austin was not interested in working with Jeff for whatever reason. And I don't really know the reason. But Steve didn't want to work with Jeff, and that made it awkward, as I said earlier.
It probably doesn't get any less awkward when Steve starts a real life relationship with Deborah, who's going to, of course, be the second for Jeff Jarrett. It just continues to twist and get more tangled. I'm going to go back to it again because I want to remind everybody the company is about to go public. So I'm wondering, when you go to Jeff earlier in the year and ask him to take that pay cut, doesn't it also stand to reason that perhaps there were bankers or an initiative internally that, hey, we got to get these budgets in line, and so trim 50 grand here and 100 grand there and that sort of thing, we can hit a number for our IPO?
Yeah, absolutely. All about the math.
Yeah.
And the rules of engagement. So, because nobody knew how much the IPO was going to deliver. Pardon me. I mentioned earlier, it created $160 million in new cash. That's a lot of money. A lot of money for a wrestling company. Are you kidding? So, I think it had a lot to do with the bean counters, because I know that Jeff was not the only person that was asked to take a decrease in guarantee. And of course, if you're working and you're doing your work as you should, then you're going to be fine. So, but it's an ego issue, the uncertainty. Am I going to make more? Am I going to make less? All those type of things. So, it was an interesting time, and I wish it had worked out differently, because there were years there that I didn't even talk to Jeff, and that's silly. No reason for that. And but we did it, and we got through it. And when I work, I see him at AEW TV, and it's always a nice conversation and shoot the shit type thing. So we got whole again. So I'm happy about that.